Well, good afternoon to our friends out there in the HOA community. My name is Bill. This is Dan.
Hi, guys.
And this is our first podcast, we hope, of many. And we're here to just discuss different issues that come up in your different communities. You know, we both live in an HOA community, and of course we have situations going on that we want to discuss and see who else shares those feelings. So if you look, we have our name up there, our community corner, and that's our email address. And please feel free. Oh, I have to change that. I'm sorry. HOA Community Living. It should be at gmail.com. Give me a second. I'm going to try and fix it. And in the meantime, Dan is going to read, the legal stuff, the disclaimers and that. So go ahead, Dan.
Just a simple product disclaimer for the podcast. The views and opinions and any information that are expressed by the host and or our guest do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of this community corner or any affiliated organization. The content is provided in this podcast is for informational only and should not be considered as professional advice. While we strive for accuracy, our community corner makes no representations as to this accuracy, completeness, or validity, you know what I mean, of any of the information presented in this broadcast. Listeners are encouraged to do their own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan, for clearing that up. So, a couple of things that have come up, as you all know. Today is the 14th of October, and we've all just gone through 2 hurricanes down here in Florida. And, there's a number of questions that have already come up, and one of them is, what kind of liability does an HOA face when allowing volunteers to do dangerous hurricane cleanup? When an HOA allows volunteers to participate in dangerous hurricane cleanup activities, it faces several potential liabilities. They include negligence if the HOA fails to provide proper supervision, training, or equipment for volunteers, and someone gets hurt. The HOA could be sued for negligence. The HOA has a duty of care to ensure that the cleanup is conducted safely and reasonably. Workman's comp.
Yeah.
Although volunteers may not be traditional employees, some states volunteers can be entitled to workman's comp benefits if they are injured while working for the HOA. And liability for injuries.
I got hurt on my own, doing my own yard, but
yeah,
I have my own liability.
If volunteers are injured while performing dangerous tasks, the HOA could be held liable if it is found that the proper safety measures were not in place, or if the HOA did not warn volunteers of the risks involved. And third-party liability if a volunteer causes injury to a third party. Just say you're cutting a tree up or something like that in somebody's backyard, and part of that tree falls over and goes through somebody's window. Well, who's liable for that?
Yeah.
Of course, it should be the HOA. But it says, depending on the HOA's insurance policy, the association might or might not be covered for that. And the same thing with injuries by volunteers or damages caused by them,
There's a lot of information out there about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing.
So what we really want to do is, of course, our feeling is if they hand you a waiver to sign before you go out there and be a volunteer to help clean up the community, I'd be very careful about signing it. Yeah. Okay? I'd be very careful about volunteering to help do a cleanup. Our opinion is the HOA should be responsible for that. Well, maybe not the HOA so much, but where we live, we have a management company.
Do people only have that some kind of contingency to say let's put it, clean this up and pay for people to do it, or
Yeah.
So.
Like our community, we there's a contingency in the bank for that.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're hearing from our board of directors is they don't want to spend any money. I don't know why. There's plenty of money in the bank, but they don't want to spend any money on it. The same thing with our sanitation fuel. We do our own sanitation at our HOA. And the They don't want to even attempt to try and get more dumpsters brought in. They're trying to control the population here. We have a lot of homes in this community, a lot. We're one of the largest communities on the West Coast. And, they're trying to tell us, well, we don't want you coming down to sanitation. The dumpsters are getting full. My suggestion was call private sanitation companies and see who's got available dumpsters. Yes. It's been a hurricane, so they may be few and far between, but at least try. And the same thing with the cleanup, and especially if your community is not wealthy, but the community's got money, contingencies. Go hire temporary labor at a temp force or something.
Yeah. That's what I would have wanted.
Because when they bring them in and you pay that hourly rate to the temp force, they're covered. Their liability, their workman comp, they're all covered by them. And we have no liability at all if one of them get hurt. And that makes sense. But, like I said, our board of directors, they don't want to spend any money. They want it done for free. And they don't care how long it takes or how long, the community looks like a dump.
Can I ever tell you, your Tootsie Roll's bigger than mine?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought bigger ones. Yeah.
These are small.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, I'm a little guy, that's why. Yeah. But one of the reasons we're doing this podcast is just to get information out there. That's all.
Yeah.
You'll see we'll never mention any names because we don't believe in pointing people out. But, there are different issues that need to be discussed. And I know Dan's got a couple. I'm going to give it to Dan now for a little bit.
Boy.
Go ahead, Dan.
I did some
Stop
research.
eating the Tootsie Rolls,
Yeah, I know. Huh? Well, I did a little bit of research on what are the common complaints about HOA and their board members. You'd be surprised. You'll find that lack of transparency is probably the number one thing.
Yeah.
People want lack of transparency, no matter what the issue may be. Second thing, of course, is poor communication. Now, I know for a fact that we've seen all kinds of communities with that kind of problem, especially in a hurricane situation. It can be very far and few between, or even inaccurate. I think you just really need to do a better job of it. Get together, talk, be here when it happens. Favoritism. This is a particular one I love. Perception that board members show favoritism towards certain homeowners or make decisions that benefit their own properties. I mean, I'd hate to see that, but that's listed as hey, what are some of the complaints? Unfair enforcement of rules. I didn't make these up. These are things I did some research on what are some complaints? Boards sometimes accused of selectively enforcing the rules. Boy, oh boy, do we see that? And then, it's one of those things like, why? I think if you eliminate the board that we have, this is a real thing that I would love to see us do. I understand we can't. And no offense to my board member sitting next to me, but, I mean, you have 8 different personalities, 8 different opinions. Why not just manage it by the people themselves? Or, let property management, resource property management do it. We'll all decide with them together what we do. Excessive fees or due increases. This is a big one. Sometimes you can't avoid it. We have the land lease coming up. We also have a big increase with our converged services, which is another whole podcast.
We'll do a whole podcast on that.
That'd be
Let's leave that a be.
Yeah, that'd be like an afternoon. You can bring your lunch.
Yeah.
Lack of responsiveness. Some of those I thought was like, wow. Sometimes you'll find power trips and abuse of authority by board members, a failure to maintain common areas. That's a big one for me. You want me to maintain my area. What about the common area? Poor financial management. These are real things. I did a lot of research that just generalization. I didn't specifically say, what about this homeowners association or this one? I asked in general. A lot of stuff out there. Just do some looking. We just got to figure out how to stay together with it. That's all.
Yeah. And just to give you a little background on the two of us, we hold our board here. We try to hold them their feet to the fire. When they're doing stuff, we send emails to them. We let them know. That's one of the most effective ways to try and do something. Of course, either they answer us and tell us we're bullying, of course, because they do not want to talk about the truth, or they just ignore us completely, which they've done many, many times. They always say at meetings, oh, we answered you. No, you didn't. I didn't get an email, And then, the lying that goes on is unbelievable also. And I'm sure you all see it in your own communities. But like I said, we have an email address down there, and we'd love for you to hear your comments too on this, you know. We happen to have a board that the majority of them are snowbirds,
And
You know.
another country.
and they're not even here, you know, and they're trying to govern from whatever country they're living in,
Yeah.
you know, while we're going through a hurricane.
Here's a few things you can talk about that are related to just that. How do you manage a hurricane crisis from far away?
Yeah,
I did some research on that. I just thought it was interesting to say, hey,
yeah. What do you got there, Dan?
Yeah.
Let's see.
I mean, just about everything. Assets with insurance, distribution, prepared resources. I mean, prepared resources. We think about that. Losing our sewer system in the south for
Yeah.
how many days?
Yeah,
That was a preemptive. I'm not blaming the board for that or any committee. Maybe the management, property management here,
I
but
think the management company should have handled that a lot better. I mean, once that lift station went down, we have a lift station that handles half our community for the sanitary waste.
backup plan.
And yeah, you know, what kind of plan is in place? There was none. You know, and the whole system started backing up, and people started seeing it coming up in the manholes in the street through the manhole covers,
And
You
in
know.
their house,
and in their homes.
Yeah, in
You
their
know,
homes.
anybody that was living down that end of the community,
the low end.
we all know how water flows downhill. So you know, these are the things that you know, and they don't want to hear it. We bring it up, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to spend any money. We actually, this community that I live in actually has over $1 million in the bank. And what I really feel is this board has got pet projects they've got that money earmarked for. Instead of using it to help the people of the community and the members of this HOA, they want to spend it on their little pet projects. You know, and that's not right. That's no way to run an HOA. But they think they can because they have the majority, which is another podcast altogether about how they manage to get the majority again. And they seem to do it for the last 15 years.
Like a revolving door.
Yeah, and you know, if you look at the different committees and the board members, all they're doing is, you know, changing seats. That's all they're doing. Oh, this guy's not on the board this year, but he's head of finance. Or this guy was head of finance last year, but now he ran for the board, so he'll be on the board for 3 years. It's always the same names. This year there were a couple more added, you know, because there are people that just either pass away or they move away. So there are vacancies that come up, you know. But it's amazing when you look at the history of some of these communities. And we're not the only one. You know, I don't think we're complaining because we're the only one. We're not. We
Everybody-
know this is very prevalent.
And some communities have gotten away from running it with their boards and use their own people to do it. I think it's, what's it, Fairway Village does it.
Fairway Village finally got rid of their management company, and they run their own community. Because they got tired of the same thing going on. Evidently the board that was there and the management company worked hand in hand, and they didn't do anything that anybody wanted, you know, except what they had to. Well, guess what? Push came to shove a couple of years ago. This is what I understand. I have no facts behind this. This is what I've been told and I understand. Things started to come to light when their recreation center was condemned by the town. And it had to come down, and they had to rebuild it. And all of a sudden, within a year or so, everything changed at Fairway. So, you know, there's a lot of curiosity, a lot of questions there, too, to be answered. I'd love some of you people that live over there to send us an email and give us, you know, set us right if we're wrong. Please do. Because we don't think we're always right.
Nope.
But we see some wrongs going on, and we'd like to see them corrected. Our board of directors don't listen to us because they don't want to talk about what's going on, the real truth. We've been shut down at meetings. We've been told that's not on the agenda, you can't talk about it. You know, what kind of board is that? Board member gets up to the microphone after the meeting and starts talking about one of the committee chairpersons and their behavior, that they're not following the code of conduct that they signed. You know, they shut them down. So we're not going to hear that. It's exactly what they said. So They also decided that we're not going to save any videos of any meetings, board meetings, committee meetings or whatever. I have copies of most of them though, so that's for nil, But they say we can't get copies of them anymore because they destroy them. What are they hiding? What are they hiding? They're afraid they're going to get caught in a lie. And that's why they're doing it. There's no other reason. It takes too much storage space.
Mm-hmm.
Crying out loud, I'll go out and buy them a 15 terabyte hard drive to put them on. That'll last about 20 years. So, there's no reason for any of this except they're hiding everything they're doing. Hey, we have to do one podcast too on the pro shop down here.
Oh yeah, totally.
They got their own beer keg in there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no liquor license. And guess whose insurance covers that? The community's insurance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff, a lot of liability out there people don't even know about. So, what else you got, Dan?
I was just looking at some of these other things like property management and how they should deal with it, the responsibilities they would have. And of course, look at some of the titles there: tenant communication and safety. In our own community during the hurricane, especially in the South Park, they had no way of getting rid of any of their personal waste. Guess what? They put 2 porta potties down there. Great move. Thank you so much. Appreciated that. But you never told anybody. It's like, property inspection and property damage assessment. Nobody did that around here. Coordination of repairs. And it talks about engaging contractors, licensed contractors to begin the repairs. It doesn't say anything in this one about volunteers. It's like prioritize critical repairs, follow up on the repairs. These are just basic things. Insurance claims. Do you plan on helping any of the tenants with insurance claims? I mean, you might even offer some kind of like a little seminar or something, just so they know what T to cross, what I to put in there. Maintenance and preventive measures. Here's what we just talked about. How do you stop these single point of failures? You can't use a compactor, save your trash at home. You can't flush. Guess what? The flusher is down. It was just crazy for a day or so. It's absolute craziness. So learn from it. Financial management, budgeting for the repairs. Have they ever done that? Of course, we've talked about that. The contingency, make sure that they know what they can do with the money. And the legal compliance was the best thing at all. Ensure the compliance with local building codes and safety regulations and the tenant's rights. Yeah.
The fact that one board member told us to go and freeze your trash,
Oh yeah.
we had no power for 3-4 days. What happens to everything in the freezer and the fridge? It spoils, right? It's really bad. So the first thing you want to do is bag it up and get rid of it. Again, we have our own sanitation area. He tells us to refreeze it. Where in the health code does it say that's okay? These guys, they just don't care.
Mm-mm.
I spoke to him and said, did you call around to private sanitation companies and see if we can get some more dumpsters? His answer was, oh, with the hurricane, there's none available. There won't be any available. I said, did you try? He didn't even try. This guy wants to run this place, but he don't want to put any effort into it,
I've heard that kind of argument from him every time, like when a few years back when the pet and the garden folks in our park kind of went bumping heads. I asked, have you ever gotten together in a meeting? And your response was, no, all they want to do is yell at each other. Well, that's great. So we'll just cut the feet off, close the door, put a lock on it, and say, tough.
All right, well, we don't want to make these too long because people will sit and they're just going on and on and on. So we're not going to do that.
We want the topic. Tell us your next topic. What would you like to
Yes,
talk about?
please send us topics. We'd be more than happy to discuss them,
We'll do the research.
And we'll do the research and get as much factual information as we can find. But we're here for you, and we're here to spread the news. And, we'll do as many as necessary. So keep an eye on Facebook, and you'll see the link. The link will be published. The next podcast I put up, you're going to see a bunch of links where you can go to find this stuff. So, and that'll probably be before the end of the week. So stay tuned, okay? Mm-hmm. Again, we want to thank you for your time and for listening. And like Dan said, We're looking for topics. We have a lot of them ourselves, but you may be bored by those topics.
That's right.
Let us know what you want to talk about. So for now, this is Bill.
Dan,
We're signing off, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thank
peace
you.
out. Well done.